You're listening to SM Media, the #1 place for exclusive content.
Hi everyone and welcome to the latest episode of All Time 11 right here on SM Media. I'm Scott McPike, delighted to be your host as always. A very special guest in this week's episode. I'm delighted to be joined by a former Inverness and Livingston player and the current coach at Inverness, Barry Wilson. Barry, it's a pleasure to welcome you on to the show. Thanks very much for coming on.
Yeah, no problem at all, Scott.
How are we?
Yeah, not too bad. Yeah, we've obviously had a good start to the season in the league, a couple of wins. We're looking to try and continue that this weekend against there. So all in all, it's been not too bad, considering new manager and stuff like that. So it's been all right.
And how you found the new kind of management change? Obviously, Billy Dodds has come in. How you found his layout so far?
Yeah, it's been pretty fluent changeover, really. The fact that Dodgy was there at the end of the last season as well helped the transition. So we've been fortunate that way, and obviously John had a couple of players lined up while he was. I took a back seat there at the end of the season, so he had players lined up as well. So that's helped, and we've just got everyone working in the same direction, which has been great.
Brilliant. We'll make a wee start talking about your career. You obviously started off early doors, then you went to Southampton. What was that like? How did that come about?
I was playing for Ross County in the Highland League. My dad was the manager, and they've got a hold of my name from a scout up here. I was 18, 19, 19, and they came up and watched me and wanted to sign me. So at 19, I made the big decision to move down there, but loved the football, but hated every minute I wasn't at the pitch. So after about 3 months or so, I just decided I'd had enough. Wasn't enjoying it. So I came back up the road, and then had about 6 weeks on trial at Hearts when Joe Jordan was the manager, and Joe was unsure. Right. So I just wanted to get back playing football again. So I ended up. My dad, Ross County, bought me back for the same money that they paid for her. So they got, to be fair, they got a better player. And then I think I was back there for about a year before I went back again down south to Raith Rovers.
Yeah. What was your kind of days like at Raith Rovers? How big a move was that for you?
Yeah, it was okay. I mean, I was going back to, I'm born in Kirkcaldy, so I was going back to my hometown club, really. Although, and I had family down in Fife and that, which made it a lot easier to settle in. And I enjoyed it, but I didn't. It's probably one of my one regrets. I don't regret leaving Southampton at all, but it was my one regret. I didn't really work as hard as I should have done away from with an extra training and stuff like that when I should have done. If I had my time back again, I would have worked a lot harder. I never ever felt that Raith fans saw the best in me.
Right.
And it wasn't until Penny probably dropped a few years later, I had to take a step back, that I started to show my real forms, kind of thing.
Yeah, definitely. You obviously move on to Inverness. You have 2 spells there. Your first spell was between 1996 and 2000. What was the memories of that first spell?
Just progressing through the leagues. Signed. Obviously dropped in from the Premier League down to the league, well, the 3rd division at the time it was probably called, and I'd got married the year I left Raith. I got married, and the wife was from up here, so Steve Patterson asked me if I would join training, so I took it for there, and then signed, won the league that year, and then we got promotion from League 2 into the Championship. I think it was at 98 or something like that. So pretty quick. We kind of followed in Livingston's footsteps. Mm-hmm. They went up one year and we did the next, and we had a right sort of ding dong at Almond Vale for promotion for the Championship one year as well. It was a brilliant game, 4-3. We got beat after being 4-0 down. So, but we got promoted to the championship, and then obviously just the final year was really when things sort of started kicking off for me. I started scoring goals. Pelly, Steve Parson put me up front, started scoring goals, like I said, and then obviously that was in February then 2000 when we beat Celtic, and then you got so much more publicity after that, and then I got my move to Livingston.
Yeah, what was your memories like of that result against Celtic?
Blurred, pretty blurred. I mean, obviously it's been well documented. We've done loads of little things about it. It was a huge night for the club. Just a great night all round. I was playing up front, scored the opener, and got brought down for the penalty for the third goal when just hanging on, but not saying comfy hanging on, but you always felt if we lost one, we would lose two, so it was huge that we didn't lose one. But it went to 3-1, like, if they score the next one, they'll. And then to probably 10 minutes ago, you think, yeah, worst case, we'll get a draw here. Because you know what it's like, Celtic Park, you're never there until the final whistle blows. But yeah, it was a great night for the club and obviously personally as well.
Yeah, definitely. We'll make a wee start in your team. First and foremost, what formation are you going to go with?
Sheer flair, Scott. 4-3-3. I'm going to go 4-3-3. I had a couple of other options, 4-3-3, 4-2-3-1 type of thing, but mostly all out attack. I've got a solid goalkeeper and a really solid back four, and then after that it's just all out attack.
Brilliant. We'll make a wee start. Who's your goalkeeper? Who you got between the sticks for your team?
Javi Sanchez Broto.
Okay.
Obviously from our Livingston days. I mean, there's a fair number of the players from the Livingston days because, quite frankly, it was the best team that I played in. Mm-hmm. We finished third in the Premier League, and won the championship, finished third in the Premier League, and it was not easily. That's disrespectful to the other players, but to the other teams. But it was definitely the best team that I played in, with some great players. And I've tried to pick one from sort of each club that I was at as well, or at least one, obviously. But the Livingston is the crux of the team. And so Big Broto in goals he just made big saves in big games. Won us so many points. Particularly that season, like I said, when our first foray into the Premier League after we won the championship, he was immense. His distribution was frightening. He could turn defence into attack with one kick. He could find you just in the dark, really. He was that good. Had that funny way of kicking it on the side foot, but he would find you no problem, which was great for me because if a team were pressing us, I would just go and he would hit you. Made a couple of big penalty saves again. I remember I think it was against Celtic, second or third game of the season as well. We're down to 10 men. He made a big penalty save, and that just kept the momentum going for that season. And there was a few other notables, along the way. But yeah, Broto was definitely he had a presence as well. He was a tall man. Came for crosses. And probably just the best all-round goalkeeper that I played with.
Brilliant. Who's in at right back?
Right back, it was a tough one because obviously I'd played about 10 years with Big Ross Tokley, who was just solid and reliable. But I thought about it, and the one I've put in is. And the other one was Philippe Brancan that I thought about Livingston. But when I was at Wraith, Stevie McInnesby was the fullback.
Right.
And he was brilliant. I mean, I think he went to Bolton for about $1 million. So I told you what people thought of him there. He was always willing to go forward on the overlap with me. But the main reason was he wasn't scared to just give me a shout and say, I've got him. You're fine. Don't need to come all the way back. I've got him. So we had a wee relationship where you knew how far you could go back and then leave him. And Stevie was great at that because he backed himself, because he was really, really quick as well. 1v1s didn't phase him, so I could easily pass him on. And as I watched your podcast with Tosher, with Stevie Tosh, obviously, you will have let you know that backtracking wasn't my favourite thing to do in the world. So Stevie was probably the best at taking the weight off me that way.
Yeah, definitely.
So yeah, he was a good player.
Who we got at left back? Who's on the other side?
I've went for Gary Bowen.
Okay.
Just not the quickest, obviously, but Stevie had so much pace on one side, but he made up for that with just putting the fear of death into opposition wingers. I mean, he scared us, he was, but great guy as well, lovely guy, Bobo, and but he could defend. He liked defending. And he was a right solid competitor. He would get forward. He would hit the diagonals on the top of me, which we worked quite a fair bit. But yeah, he was no nonsense and definitely makes the team.
And obviously as well, you've got your two centre halves. Who's in at left centre half?
Bobby Mann.
Okay, he turns up in a few of these as well.
Big Bobby, not potentially, but possibly the best football player I ever played with.
What was it about him? A lot of folks just say how
his range of passing was frightening. I mean, off the charts, frightening. Didn't he get the credit he deserved? Obviously, when you think of him, everyone thought of his size, and he carried a bit of weight. But when he was in physical fitness for him, top, he was, I remember playing against him, and I'd always say, right, get me one-on-one with Bobby, but when you got one, he knew how to read the game, and he knew what you were going to do, and you're all right, he's going to knock it. Very rarely many people would beat him in a 1v1 because he would either just take you out or he would read what you were going to do. I mean, such a clever football player. Really, really clever. And like I said, his range of passing, and he was a captain, he was a leader as well. He demanded, he was probably, him and Tosher were probably the two in my career who really never let me away with things. Being a kind of, not a luxury player, but a winger can be in and out of games. And it wasn't until I got older that I started producing more regularly. Like I said earlier, I wasn't as that good at Wraith, but I got better as I aged. But Bobby would be on my case all the time. Now, at Inverness, no one else would have got away with that, but Bobby did. He didn't care, and it was reputation was out the window with him, and he was brilliant. He's still one of my best mates, but he gets in on merit because, as I said, he's reading of the game, he's passing, was scary.
Brilliant. Who partners him on the right-hand side?
A wee bit less ability on the ball, but Marvin Andrews, Big Marv, Ron Seal, isn't it? That's what he says in the tin. He would just go and header the ball, and if it went up in there, he would go and header it again. So I would just have him winning. If Bobby couldn't get across, I would just have Marv winning the tackles and the headers, and then just giving the ball to Bobby and letting Bobby play out. He was quick. He was surprisingly quick, Big Marv. And another great guy. But as I said, we just used to, teams had corners, we just used to put him in the middle of the 6-yard box and say, go and header it. And he would get to the front 6, he would manage to get to the back 6, he would manage to get to the penalty spot for there. He was colossal, and that, as I said, that year at Livingston, it was him and Oscar Rubio, who nearly made my team as well. I did think of Oscar, and I thought about going 3 at the back, but I knew Bobby and Marvin had to get in. They were really, really so important for us. It was because we were built on being pretty solid at the back, and that let the boys up front go and do their business. So Marvin to be fair, that was probably two of the easier ones. Was Bobby and Marvin as centre halves.
Brilliant. Well, touching your time at Livingston as well, you spent 3 years there, obviously between 2000 and 2003, where Jim Leishman was the manager. Just how big a character was Jim Leishman, and how good a manager was he as well?
Probably, again, probably a lot of players that I played with are probably underrated a little bit. Now, probably tactically, Leish was, most people say Leish wasn't that up on it, but he got people around about him that were.
Yeah.
At Livingston at that time, we had obviously Robbo, we had Alan Preston, but Davy Hay was the one for me that was just different class to work with. When I moved down there, when I first signed, Davy walked me onto the pitch, and he just says to me, Barry, if we're attacking to a right, this is the half of the pitch I want you on. This is where you'll do your best work. Never mind that half. I'll get a defender that'll be able to. I thought, you'll do for me, Davey. That is music to my ears. And I'll get midfielders to cover. And obviously, that's where Tosher came in.
Aye.
But so it was great. But say Leish he got good people around him. He knew the game, and obviously motivation and stuff like that was brilliant as well. But they just had a good blend of coaches at Livingston at the time, which made it really, really work. Yeah,
definitely. How did it end up you went back to Inverness? Was there a particular reason that you went back?
Yeah, pretty much. Livingston, Dominic Keane took in Marcio Maximus Breilmus, Brazilian manager.
Yeah.
And the way that was done was really poor. And then I think after one training session, I tapped on the manager's door or not the manager, Davy's door and Alan Preston at the time, and I said, "This guy's a fraud. This guy can't coach." So I knew right away I wasn't happy. I wasn't enjoying training. He ended up playing me as a striker that would burst wide and then take me off after 65 nearly every game. And I was like, nah. So then Robbo had obviously then got the Inverness job, and we'd kept in touch, and knew I wasn't happy. So came in for probably transfer deadline day for a cheeky offer, and I went, yeah, I'll take that. I'll move back up. I had two girls, two young kids who I quite fancied growing up here, up north. And I thought, yeah, now's the time. I'm not enjoying it. And as same with when I was at Southampton, if I'm not enjoying it, either off the park or I've just had to go.
Yeah.
Football's too short to spend years. I was never one that could spend years not playing or just not enjoying the manager or whatever, So that was the reason. It was purely and simply the coach that they took in.
Yeah, definitely. What were the highlights of your second spell at Inverness?
Without a doubt, winning the championship the first season I went back.
Yeah.
Justified me dropping from the Premier League down to the championship. Winning that league on the last day of the season in front of a full house, scoring the penalty that won the game and ultimately won the league. Probably the best day of my footballing career that day. We beat St Johnstone 3-1 in the end. And beautiful sunny day, 7,500, jam-packed, helicopter flying up with the trophy. The whole thing was Clyde could have won it. Fantastic. What a day. And then obviously then staying in the Premier League as well was great, but the getting there was the cherry for me.
Brilliant. We'll move into your midfield. How are you working your midfield out? Is it going to be a sitter and two further forward, or how's your midfield?
Yeah, kind of. As much as I'm saying total flair, but you do need a wee bit of balance there. So the sitting one I would have would be Kino, Francisco Kino.
Right, okay.
From Livingston. Again, I watched Tosher's podcast with you, and he obviously waxed lyrical about him.
Yeah.
And technically brilliant. What he couldn't do with a ball wasn't worth knowing about. But an unbelievable engine as well.
Yeah.
Kept going. He was in his 30s at Livingston as well, but he was so fit. Again, talk about range of passing, when to dribble with the ball, when to play it simple, touch. He had it all. He really did have it all. And he was a huge part of the reason why we did so well down there.
Yeah.
So if I would have him probably sitting not too deep, but just in front, and because he, as I said, his range of passing, so a wee bit of like a quarterback, and just giving it to the more forward thinking players. Although Keano probably chipped in with 7 or 8 goals as well. But out the 3 midfielders I've picked, he's the most defensive one.
And who plays further forward? Who plays on the left-hand side?
On the left-hand side, Davy Bingham.
Right.
In the 3 now. Bingy obviously would rather play further forward, so he'll be giving me a phone call once he sees this to say, "I would have never played there, but I'm playing him left of a 3 midfield." Because I'm a forward-thinking player. All like when I'm thinking about real top players that I played with, I do think of the attacking ones.
Yeah.
You know. And Bingy was definitely one of them, definitely an attacking one, but definitely also one of the top players that I played with. He was so cultured, so clever, great touch, and obviously would give you balance with his left foot as well. With a great understanding at Livingston, and then when he came up to Inverness. Another reason I came back up to Inverness was that Robbo had also signed Bingy.
Yeah.
So with a year, we won the league. And it was myself, Bingy, and Paul Ritchie who played up front. So 3 over 30s up front. But Bingy was a class act, real class act, and a fit boy as well. So I think he could do the job. Although he'd probably prefer an easier shift. But there you go. So I've got Bobo just in front of, just behind Bingy, so that's a right good drinker's left side I've got all the way.
And who have we got on the right-hand side? Who completes in midfield?
Well, there's no way, mate, I would get away with picking a team without putting Tosher in it.
He'll be buzzing, won't he?
Yeah, so he's right to the 3. He was, again, a little bit like Bobby, man, and a little bit like myself, where definitely improved with age. You know, when he was younger, he was quite brash, and he was box to box, and he would get tore in. But he kind of mellowed as he got older. At Livingston, he was probably, what would he be, 26, 27 maybe. So the penny was dropping, but he was far better than a lot of players, a lot of people gave him credit for, and probably what gave himself credit for at times, Tosha, you know. Although he's no shy, as you know. But I mean, he would if there was any trouble in the pitch, he would sort things out. You know, he'd be right across sorting things out, so right away. But technically, he could play. He had a wee drop with the shoulder, so he could create. He could score goals, and round about the dressing room, he's brilliant. You know, he's just you can just let him go, and he'll cover you for a couple of hours if you wanted. You know? See, when we go on a golfing holiday night, he covers you for about a week. He doesn't stop, you know. It's just unbelievable. But so, and then later on in my career, I went down to Queen of the South near the end. It was Tosher that I'd spoke to Gordon Chisholm. I'd been released for Cali, or my contract had run out at Cali, and so I went down, had another year with him at Queen of the South, and he was pulling the strings down there. You know, he was, and I went, 2 or 3 years away, and he'd really kind of improved his game, because his game was always there, but it really worked out that he couldn't just keep doing box to box. So he became a little bit deeper and using the ball better, and he was a quality footballer. So as much as I loved his time off the pitch with him, and we're still best pals yet, he's on again. He's on the pitch on merit. There's no doubt about that. There's no way I could pick an 11 without. He would be first one in there, because he would, like I said, he would run through a brick wall for you. But if there was any problems, you know, if I was ever getting kicked by a fullback or whatever, he would generally go and sort them out and then soften them up for me. So I would say,
brilliant. See, when you obviously kind of finish playing, you obviously went to Queen of South and Peterhead. Was it always a plan to go into kind of coaching and management?
Yeah, when I was at Livingston, I'd done my badges.
Right.
And then, I mean, ideally, at the end of my time at Inverness, if in an ideal world, I would have retired and went into coaching then at Inverness if I could, because I'd been taking the reserve team at Inverness under Charlie Christie, and then when Craig Brewster came back, didn't kind of want me, do not want me concentrate on playing. And then when my contract ran out, didn't get a new one. To be fair, I was coming up for 37. So I could understand why, although I was disappointed, I could understand why. But ideally, I would have rather stayed. I would, if they'd offered me a coaching job then or whatever, I would have just retired, you know.
Yeah.
So but then went and played at Queen of the South and then moved back up. And then Peterhead, and then I went to Elgin as assistant manager and done a wee bit under Ross Jack for a year and a half.
Yeah. You then get the Wick job as well. How did that come about?
Davy Kirkwood, ex-Rangers and an ex-teammate of mine for Wraith, was the manager of Wick, and he left to go to Brora. And then I got a phone call one night. I had resigned, not resigned as such. I didn't renew my contract at Elgin. I started my business, and I just felt I needed to concentrate on that.
Yeah.
And then I don't know, October maybe, Wick got in touch with me, and I went, yeah, okay, but I can only give you one night training because it's Wick's 2 hours from where I stay in Dingle. So I need to get an assistant manager from up there, do Monday, and I'll come up and do Wednesdays and stuff like that. And it worked out really, really well. The really successful time. And then Ross got fired from Elgin, and then Elgin then approached me if I would take over after that. So I went there, didn't like it, didn't enjoy it, and only stayed about 6-7 months before I resigned.
Yeah.
So, and then kind of fell out again. Went into the media side after that.
Yeah.
Working with the BBC on open all mics.
Yeah.
For about 3 years until Robbo gave me the shout to come back to Inverness.
Brilliant. Well, mate, we'll finish up your team. We'll go through your front three. Who's on the left-hand side of your front three?
David Fernandez.
Okay. Easy
choice.
choice.
Play anywhere along the front three. So obviously at Livingston, he was again another one of the Spaniards that came in. I think Celtic bought him for about £1 million.
Could you see as soon as you saw him that he would go on? They could go on to that level?
Not initially. I mean, technically he was great, but hung onto the ball a wee bit too long at times, and probably was not the best finisher I've ever seen. So you weren't quite sure. But then the more you saw him, you realised, hold on, there's more to his game here. He's taking an extra touch, but he's dragging another defender over to him, which is then creating space for somebody else.
Yeah.
And then some of the things he would do with the ball was just ridiculous. So, and I think that year he got maybe 8 goals, but probably had about 18 assists. You know, back in those days, you didn't really count assists like you do nowadays. You know, we get caught up with stats now, and it's so many assists and this and that. So he probably had about 18 assists easily. Took a lot of kickings for the way he played, obviously, taking that extra touches. He would do that, but he got up every single time. And just he was a pleasure to play with. And you wanted him in your team in training, that's for sure. Small-sided games. You didn't want to be trying to mark David, you know. He would just, and he was strong as well. He was quite kind of stocky, but he would stick the arse into you, and you know, and just you couldn't get the ball off him. So he was another one who was quite an easy, right, okay, how do I get him into my team? Yeah. He's in my team. Where do I play him in my team? And for reasons that will obviously come about, why he's on the left-hand side.
Who's in the right-hand side? Who's in the left?
Well, there's no way I'm picking a team and not having Marcel in it. Right?
Brilliant.
I know Chaucer didn't pick. Tosher didn't pick himself, but I'm putting this team together. I'm playing in it. I'm sorry. If it wasn't going to be me, I would pick Stephen Dobie.
Okay.
That year, again, pick from different players, different clubs as well. So that year at Queen of the South, I was obviously finishing my career, and Dobbs was probably just really kick-starting his. So myself and Tosher were there when the penny dropped, I think, and he was virtually unplayable. I mean, we were only mid-table maybe, but he was just off the charts, and no wonder he got his move. It was, some of the stuff was just that he was scoring 4 goals a game, and I remember we beat Clyde 7 or something. He scored 4 or 5, and it was just, you just give him the ball, and you back him up and maybe try and take a defender away, but he would still beat the other 3 and drag it, and Cruyff and all sorts. So he'd more ability than I ever had, that's for sure. But I would still pick myself.
Brilliant. Who leads the line? Who's the striker?
Probably the toughest one, Scott. I'm not going to lie, because I've played with a right few. I mean, before I name the one, Dennis Wyness at Inverness was a quality striker. I had a brilliant working relationship with Denzel. I mean, he scored over 100 goals for Inverness. Technically brilliant, his touch. Didn't have pace, but we made up for that. I had some on one side and we had some on the other side as well, with different players. Stevie Crawford at Rafe was just beginning to start his career. He was a year or so younger than me, Stevie. Lightning quick, really great, really good finisher. And then Paul Ritchie, as I mentioned him as well, when I moved up to Inverness. I think I was 32, Bingy was 33, and Paul was 35. So we all said we totaled up 100 years between the 3 of us. But he was probably one of the most natural finishers I'd seen. I know a boy you'd want to play a 1-2 round the box with, because you would never get it back. No inside the box. No inside the box, and he would just take a turn and shoot. But great guy. But the player I'm picking, just to blend in with how the rest of the team would play, is Craig Brewster.
Okay.
Now, people that know me and know what happened with me at Inverness with Brewster might think, well, that was a bit strange, because Brew came up and pretty much immediately dropped me from the team and wanted me fitter. I had to lose like half a stone. I was 32, maybe 33. And people thought, we didn't get on with each other, but we actually got on fine. In fact, I spoke to him only a couple of weeks ago. He phoned me. But he was at the end of his career, but he's probably the best target man I've played with. I mean, his touch, bringing other players into it. So I would want him, balls up to his feet, where maybe Fernandez, me, Tosher could run off it. He was great in the air. Again, another lefty. And just, again, such a clever player. So the link-up play between Bingy and him and Fernandez would be frightening. So as a team, that's how I kind of went, I think Brew would be best in that position. And like I said, I only got him when he was, 37 maybe, something like that, 36, 37. But he was phenomenal. He obviously came back for Greece. He came back a different player. He was fit. He was strong. So I said there's been a few strikers that I've loved playing with, but he was one that I just thought I can't no play him, because he was that good. Like I said, they weren't the players that I mentioned, but Brew was a quality striker.
Brilliant. Some team, is there any players you'd want to give a mention to who just missed the cut?
Yeah. Well, I've probably said, like, say, Philippe Duncan at Inverness, at Livingston at right back was one. Stuart Lovell was another one. Was a great midfielder for Livingston. Rubio I've mentioned, and probably from Inverness time, like I said, wee Charlie Christie, Ryan's dad, was a great footballer. But he was really, really good when we were coming up through the leagues with Inverness. Again, he was at the wrong side of his career, so he was getting older as well. Never got the chance to play the Premiership, which was a shame for Charlie, because he was technically very, very good.
Yeah.
Another one would probably be Russell Duncan. Now, a lot of people, who's that? But from my era, Peds would have been in my Inverness all 11, definitely. He just loved the way he just ratted, got the ball back and gave it wide, and that just got the best out of me.
Yeah.
So those boys, I'll definitely give them a mention. There's so many others, obviously. I had probably a 20-year career, but you know, I like to pick so many, obviously 11 and then a couple of mentions, but and I dare say I've missed somebody out, and the phone will be going after you put this on, so apologies now, but yeah, I loved every minute of my career, and I stretched it as I got everything out of it that I could with the ability that I had. I didn't think I would have that when I was 19, 20, because I was quite a late starter. Because geographically where we were up in Dingwall, full-time football wasn't here then.
Aye.
You know, it was Highland League, and so I just had to try and make my way from the basement, really. You know, so quite proud of what I did. Wasn't the most gifted, skilled player, but I had speed and I could finish, and I could cross the ball, which was always handy for a winger.
Definitely. How much are you enjoying what you're doing now? Obviously coaching at Inverness, and who's some of the kind of good players coming through there that could potentially go on and do really well in the future?
Yeah, I really enjoy it. I mean, I've been here 3 years now. Started off taking the under-18s 3 years ago, and obviously now I'm just with the first team now. But out of that under-18 team, we've now had, obviously, Daniel McKay's left to go to Hibs. We sold him on. Young Roddy McGregor scored the winner last week. And young Cameron Harper. So there's those two out of that squad have now broken into the first team regular. So I'm really proud of them for what they've done to break into. It's not easy. And then we've got a couple of good 21-year-olds like Robbie Dees. Came up from Celtic. He's got a real chance. And probably the other one that's done really, really well is Scott Allardyce. He came up on, I think Robbo signed him last year. Didn't know much about him, but right away we're like, oh, I'm liking what you've got there, you know it. And then, to be fair, Dodsy's taken the lad Rhys McAleer from Norwich. He was Motherwell as a kid, so he's only 19. He's got a big future ahead of him as well. So we've got quite a mix of we've got a lot of experience, obviously, like the Broadfoot, Devine, Doran, Gardine, Billy Mackay, but we've also got 5 or 6 sort of 19, 20, 21-year-olds, so we've got a good blend, and it's going to be interesting to see how the season develops.
Definitely. Barry, it's been an absolute pleasure to you on the show. I can't thank you enough for coming on, and best of luck for the season ahead.
Thanks, Scott. I've really enjoyed it. Brought back good memories too.
Brilliant, thank you.